Guys, in this lesson, we're going to learn a bit more about the Amazon Simple Storage Service. So as you know, it's a object-based storage system and it's accessed over the public internet. So it's an internet-facing service. And what you do is you create something called a bucket, and the bucket is where you place your objects. So it's the container for your objects, and your objects are basically your files. So they could be, any kind of media file. There could be documents, spreadsheets, video files, photographs, and so on. And you access your bucket using a URL, which is why the bucket name must be unique, because it's part of the URL. So that's what makes the URL unique. Obviously, all URLs on the internet must be unique. Therefore, we have to find a bucket name that's globally unique. So we upload our objects, and an object actually consists of a key. This is the name of the object, a version ID, and then a value. And the value is the actual data itself. S3 is known as a key value store because it consists of objects which are made up of a key and a value. And then you can also assign metadata and something called sub-resources and access control information defining who can access your objects. You can also connect your instances in your VPC to Amazon S3, and you do so using an internet gateway. So the internet gateway connects you to those public AWS services. Now there is another way, and that's called a gateway endpoint. It's a bit beyond the scope of this beginner's course, but there is a way that you can connect using private IP addresses to Amazon S3, and that's what that is there. So you would do that when you want to avoid using the public internet and public IP addresses, going this way to Amazon S3. So there's good use cases for that. So that's it for the theory. Let's go into the console and start looking at Amazon S3 in some more detail. In the AWS Management Console, let's click Services, S3, and we already created a couple of buckets earlier. Let's just create another one, and I'm just going to call this S3-Cloud Beginners Bucket. And now you get the option to choose your region. So the name must be globally unique. You can see it's a global service, but the actual bucket is created within a region. And your data will always be stored within that region. It will never leave that region unless you configure it to do so. You can configure replication between regions. So you should choose the region that is the closest to your users, or that what makes the most sense in terms of reducing latency, but also your data might need to be in a particular place for compliance reasons. So you might not be able to put it in another part of the world. So I'm going to keep it on Sydney, click on Next, and we get a few options here. We can enable something called versioning. So every time we modify the objects in the bucket, it will keep an older version of that object. And we'll see how this works soon. You can add server access logging, object level logging, and encryption. And if you choose encryption, there's a couple of options for how you can do it. So I'm going to leave those as they are. I'm just enabling versioning. Let's click on Next. Now by default, public access is blocked. So they're trying to keep your bucket secure. So it's quite a good default configuration. Let's click on Next. And now we can actually go and create our bucket. So we'll click Create Bucket. It doesn't take long. And there we go. We have our third bucket here. So let's upload an object now. And I'm going to find some files. So I've got a couple of images. Let's just upload both of these images. I'll click on Choose. And then I could just click on Upload to accept the defaults. But otherwise, I can see that there are a few more options that I could configure. So I can choose the object permissions. If I click on Next, I can then choose the storage class. So Amazon S3 has several different storage classes with different costs and different features. So you can choose the best storage class for your data. And it's worth looking these up. There's some good information on the AWS website to understand the best place to put your data. And you can even automatically transition your data between storage classes using a policy. So let's click on Next. I'm going to leave the defaults and click on Upload. So I now have my two images and they've both been uploaded to S3. Now if I click on one of these, I get this URL. So let's try and open the URL. So I've opened that in a new tab. And what I get is this message. It says access is denied. So we're not able to access this image by default. Remember, the public access was blocked. So let's see how we can enable it now so that we can access our object. What we need to do now is go to the permissions of our bucket, and we need to edit here and disable this block public access. Click on save, and we need to confirm. So we've done that, but we also need to add something called a bucket policy. So a bucket policy is a way that we can add some JSON, some JavaScript object notation, which will define who can access our bucket. So I have a policy for you here. So what you need to do is copy this code, come back, paste it here, and we need to change something. So we need to change our bucket name. So we need to come up here and copy this name. So this is the name of my bucket. And I'm going to put it in the code here where it says bucket name. And that's all we need to change. So make sure the rest of it is the same. You still need to have this statement here, exactly as it's written on my screen here, and then have the name of your bucket, and click on save. So now that we've done that, it actually pops up and says this bucket has public access. Back on this tab here where we tried to connect before but were denied, let's hit refresh, and now we can see the image displayed on our screen. So that just shows you how to disable public access if you want to, so that you can actually view your data, or anyone on the internet will now be able to view your data. I also want to show you how to use versioning, and I'm going to do so via the command line in the next lesson.